massive post-metal album all the way from Sweden. It is album 3 from A Swarm of the Sun. The album's called The Woods, and there's a follow-up to the very highly acclaimed The Rifts, which came out a few years ago. And The Swarm of the Sun, at its core, consists of a power duo of guitarist and pianist Eric Nielsen and vocalist Jacob Berglund. And I hope I haven't butchered that pronunciation too much. I think I've definitely mentioned it before with prog. I might have mentioned it before with post rock and metal, but post rock for me is on power prog in that it is very intelligent genre. It's not really something you could have on in the background because I feel like you would lose a lot of what's going into it. Like all the soundscapes, all the walls of sound, everything like that, you tend to lose that along the way if you just have it on whilst you're doing something else. I tend to like post rock and post metal when it's combined with something else. So I really like the Contra album last year, like I said before, and that's got a lot of post metal elements in with all the sludge metal is also in there. When it's combined with post hardcore for Touche Amore or Being as an Ocean, I'm always down for that. And also combined with black metal. So I talked about Maul last year, Death Heavener is a good one, Oathbreaker a big one for me. On its own, so yeah, it's difficult. When it's combined, it's a lot more. It can go in more with me because I've got more things to attach to, more things that are more comfortable and familiar with me. And I'd say the last full-on post-metal album I listened to was probably the Wear Your Wounds album from, what was that, 2016? 3 years ago? 16, 17? Which, if people aren't aware, it was the side project of Jacob Bannon from Converge. And thing is, I thought the Wear Your Wounds album was very okay. And this was an album that was getting high regards from other people who know their shit when it comes to this kind of music. So I don't know if that's like a good way of having a like yardstick for me. An album I thought was very okay, or very, I say very okay, that makes it sound like it was kind of shit. It was just, it was a post metal album that I found enjoyable. With that as the yardstick for me, compared to when everyone else is saying great, you could do the math. It's like A equals B, except it doesn't. For The Woods then, it is 3 songs only, but each song is over 12 minutes long, so it's been a complete fucking slog to get through, because like I said, sitting down, I feel like with post-rock or post-metal, you need to sit down and take it all in. And I don't know why, I can happily listen to a 40-minute album of punk rock or hardcore or whatever, but for some reason, when it's big eclectic like this, I'm a fucking pillock. The opener, The Blackout, is a slow building and intimidating piece of music. And it grows layer by layer with each new instrument brought in. So it starts with like this quite eerie piano, and then you just get more, so like drums kick in, more guitars kick in, more strings kick in, just like builds, and then it like peters off quite dramatically. And then it goes into this big, dramatic, like metal-laden half of that's where the metal half of all this album comes into. And the closing 3 or 4 minutes, I could only compare it to when I was younger. Obviously, like back in days, like when Boomerang was top quality TV, and you used to get all the OG Tom and Jerry cartoons and Looney Tunes and that kind of thing. And there's always an episode where they had to conduct on a stage, like conduct an orchestra or a pianist or whatever. And they used to, obviously for the sake of cartoons, they used to overact and be melodramatic in terms of everything. Excuse me. And that was what, like that frantic movement is kind of like what's in my head when I hear the last 3 or 4 minutes, because the instrumentation, especially the drummer on this album, Carl Daniel Leadon, he's a fucking loon. Ain't no pun intended with Looney Tunes reference, but he's absolutely off his tits. Just somehow he can make a wall of noise in the same way as I was saying before with Miss Cogan and Tallies and like guitars in general. He's trying to do that with a drum kit. And it's not like just constantly smashing on hi-hats, whatever. He's doing a lot of it on the toms. And he's fucking insane. to the point, and so the first song is completely instrumental. Berglund's vocals are nowhere to be seen, and then all of a sudden, on like track two begins. It's a self-titled track. Oh, sorry, not self-titled. Album title track, and it actually scared me the first few times I heard, because it's the first time the album's used lyrics, and he just like kind of appears out of nowhere. It's from what I remember, it's kind of off key. Not off key. Sorry, that's the wrong word entirely. Off rhythm, I think is a better word. Is a better word. So it's not like basic musician. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. He appears at like 2 or 3 just out of nowhere. Really threw me off. And yeah, because you just like, for me, I was getting this like really comfortable, almost borderline familiar environment with this big post-rock sound, and then all of a sudden you've just got Berglund there. He's got kind of a creepy singing voice as it is, like quite low and drawn out, and then just like butts his head in. Then yeah, it kind of shook. It hashtag shook me, which is something I promise I'll never say ever again. The like after he's like had his, because his vocals are very sparing in this album. After you've gotten past that side of it, there's like this guitar backed. It almost sounds like a funeral march begins just with like a guitar backing to like bring it along. It is full of like organ pieces that would, it creates like such a dark atmosphere that would make Typo Negative shy. It's slow, it's methodical, and there are parts in it where, in between the fills, or the fills in the orchestration, it kind of reminds me of that last Perfect Circle album, which I know they are like 2 different ends of the spectrum in terms of like post music, but like I said, the drum fills, the way he can fill like a tiny gap in the music in between like guitarists like switching down a neck, or the string musicians reorganizing their fingers, he can get that like little bit of extra drums in and just that little bit more just to like keep it going at all times, despite the fact it is a post-metal album and you need to draw out musical sequences. It's almost like ADHD, where he just doesn't want there to be silence for more than too long. And it just, like, the song builds and builds and builds, so it's like more up-tempo, borderline rock crescendo. And like I said, the drummer Liden sounds like an absolute demon behind the kit, putting in so many fills, and like just everything I just said before, actually, because I've reread my notes. Just any changes between guitars and the atmospherics, squeaky chair. There is Carl there, just making it so there is not a single moment of silence when he doesn't want there to be. Goes into the final track, An Heir to the Throne, which sounds like a dark folk song at first, because the rhythm is set by the toms from Lead In Again, and it says dum, 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 and it does sound like some kind of pagan tribe is about to like eat your face. And you've got more of Berglund's vocals on this, and they sound so strange. Like, they are so very clear. Like, there's no way it's a harsh singing in this or anything like that. It is just almost as if he's being squeezed, I guess is the best way of saying it. Because he sounds like he's constantly under some kind of pressure, but his vocals come through so cleanly and so clear. And then the song, again, like the two of them previously, explodes into this. It's almost, I kind of compared it to like Funeral Doom for the second half, because it's this big, dramatic, slow-paced, like riff storm, I guess, to see out the last of the song, and then therefore the last of the album. Albums, there's certain albums you listen at certain times of the year. For me, the example I give, because obviously I've been listening to a lot of them recently, the Pure Love album with Frank Carter, that was an album which I couldn't wait to listen to in the peak of summer. A lot of the pop punk stuff and punk rock sort of thing works so well in the summer. Things like this, where it is a dark and broody post-metal album, this is sitting by the fire in a blizzard in the middle of Scandinavia kind of levels of winter record. It is... I got cold listening to it, and I live in the... Like, UK is cold right now. It is not Scandinavia cold. And I'm indoors with the heating on several cups of tea. But this album just puts, like, you in a chill the entire way through. And as someone... It's like, for me, as someone who's not into post-metal a lot, I don't think this is an album that I would go back to soon. Not because I think it's bad at all. I quite enjoyed this album, especially when it really did rise up into... For a lot of songs, the second half of the song, where it became that like big crescendo with... I fell in love with the drummer, as you can tell. Excuse me. But yeah, the second half of each song is more what I was waiting for each song, and I feel like I'm the wrong market for it in that case. But for me, it's not one that I'll go back to. There's certainly parts of this album that I really, really enjoyed. For me, if I was to compare it to anyone, while trying to find more about post-metal, I found a band called Blue Neck. They are apparently quite prominent in that scene, so if you're aware of them, I think you'd really enjoy Swarm of the Sun. Lights in Motion, which are a very dramatic post-rock band. They advertise their music as trying to create music that would be in films, which, if you ever listen to a Lights in Motion song, you'll absolutely hear where you could fit any one of their songs into any major movie release, from Star Wars to anything Marvel related to Bond, anything. So definitely recommend them if you enjoy Swarm of the Sun. And for me, when it got to, like, in terms of like the slow build up into the big dramatic end, if you take the vocals out, I'd compare it to Oathbreaker, which I know, I said before, were using post-metal with black metal. My favourite song from that latest album, Rhea, is Needles in the Skin, where it is this like slow, haunting start, and then does explode into the wall of sound that becomes like the now standard post-black metal Oathbreaker sound. If you took out, I can't remember her name, I want to say it's Kara. If you took out the vocalist's lyrics and her screams over the top of it and just had the music, I think that comparison of the slow build into something very dramatic will transfer to Swarm of the Sun. So, the long way of saying everything is, if you enjoy Lights in Motion, if you enjoy the musical side of Oathbreaker, if you enjoy Blue Neck, I think you should go for A Swarm of the Sun. It is their third album. It is called The Woods. And yeah, if you like that sort of post-rock, dramatic post-metal kind of thing, I think this would be right up your street.